Alrighty, and we're on. So we're here sitting at Lions Den Academy. Luke Pezzutti over here. Now, how you and I met, and I think I've mentioned this in another video previously, but so years and years ago, used to run a little thing after CFC called New South Wales AMMA.
Yeah,
AMMA. And just throw it on your lap. Yeah, you might have to rest it there. And I did a couple of those comps when you were running that. But also, I'm just trying to remember here because there's somehow, because I think one of the first competitions I ever did was at PCYC down Wollongong Way on Redcliffe Road.
That wasn't me. That was
wasn't
run by Big Kadajar.
Okay. And then, so I don't know how that ended up getting me in contact with you, because I ended up on your mailing list somehow, because I remember I used to see like the...
maybe it was run through Compappy.
Yeah,
because Con and I were doing the pancreation ones together. Then I started the AMA.
Okay.
So Con loved... Con was always running the pancreation comps from way back.
Yep.
And then he organised a show down in Melbourne, sat down in Wollongong with Mick Kadajar's guys and stuff, because Mick was quite big into the pancreation as well.
Yep.
Trying to make like an Olympic, it was trying to become an Olympic sport back then.
Yep.
So that's why we sort of went down that way.
Yep. And, okay, so, and before that, you're obviously running CFC. And I guess... let's go back all the way, because then we can go through it chronologically, because there's going to be quite a few stories. And I think it's actually nice to be able to talk about the history of mixed martial arts and combat sports in Australia. Mm-hmm. And so, you're one of the OGs of that, and I think it's it'd be really cool to extract some of those stories out of you today.
Yeah, okay.
So
I'll do my best.
So to give everybody a bit of an idea, like where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I actually grew up right where we sort of are, So I lived the next suburb over in Beverly Hills.
Yep.
I grew up in Kingsgrove here, went to school with the place just behind the gym, and then, I worked as a aircraft mechanic from leaving school, and then I got another job in DY, and then I realised that lifestyle wasn't for me, being in the workshops and stuff. And I was always doing martial arts from a young age. I probably started around 10, 11, so... And one of the kids with a bad temper, and then started doing stuff, and just learning how to do it properly, and that helped control me, make me a nicer human being.
Well, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's slow it down, right? So,
sure.
Okay, so I guess in terms of like family and as you're growing up, did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I'm one of 8.
One of 8?
Yeah, I'm second youngest.
Second youngest of 8.
Yeah, and there was 6 boys.
Yep.
And 2 sisters. So... just growing up in that environment, I suppose, made me very competitive.
Yep.
Physical, we're all sort of built very similar, quite solid guys. Always wrestling and stuff at home.
Yep.
And then I always wanted to do some martial arts, but because I had that bad temper, I was always, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, because they thought I'm going to fight.
Yep.
And then eventually they sort of caved in, and I started doing it, watching Bloodsport and the old Jackie Chan movies and Bud Spencer and Terence Hill, those were the ones that got me in, yeah, and they got me into, Clint Eastwood, they got me into the fighting game.
Yep. And just on that line of thinking there, right, a lot of parents do think that, if your child's a bit aggressive, that sending them to training is going to encourage that behaviour and make them worse. Do you find that it's actually the opposite?
Opposite, yeah. It's the most humbling experience. So it helps people be better human beings, mate. We're all competitive. We all like to be hands-on, and I think that's what's needed, especially, young kids, to be very active and try to build themselves and build a social network.
Yeah, and you got to get that energy out.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah. And it's safe, right? I mean, the other complaint you get is, I don't want my kids to do it because they don't want to get hurt.
Yep.
And you're like, listen, if I'm training kids and they're getting hurt every time they turn up, I'm not going to have anybody here. And I've been around for 27 years now.
Yeah.
So your kids aren't going to get hurt. They don't get hurt doing the sport.
Yeah.
That's how they learn not to get hurt.
Yeah, that's right. Learning how to
build
fall.
a bit of resilience. And,
Getting tougher, progressively getting tougher, right?
Yeah.
And I guess we're going to talk about Hector Lombard a bit later too.
Oh,
right?
yeah, of course. Guaranteed.
So, wow, eight children in the household. Out of curiosity, how big was the house that you were living in?
It's pretty big, actually. We're lucky because my grandparents bought the property, and it's only local, but we owned the centre of a block. So we had a house on the street front of the block, and then we owned the centre.
Yep.
So we had like a nice big pool. My dad was a builder. We had a 4-bedroom house, but there was 3 boys in one room, 3 boys in another room, the girls in another, and the parents. So I grew up with 2 brothers in the same room, but we had a bit of space, you know. It was okay.
And did you guys ever gang up on one of the other siblings? Or?
Oh yeah, yes, of course. yeah, that goes without saying.
So Pezzutti, what's the background of that surname?
Italian. Yeah. So they came over, I think, from the original war, Italy and Greece or something like that. That, you know, it was just hard times in Italy at the time. And my grandmother's, on my dad's side, her family came over and they bought a cane farm.
Wow.
And then my grandfather, he came over with his brothers. He was only young, 16 or something like that. And then he was just working on the cane farm, and they met through their mum's side. They're Scottish-Irish. So a bit of a mixture. And then when they moved down from, because my grandfather was sick, so they moved from Innisfail down to Sydney. And then Dad, growing up in Sydney at Arncliffe, met my mum, and
that was it. 8 kids.
8 kids.
Yeah. Bit of chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess, you know, when you think back on those times at home, it would have been some pretty fond memories, right?
Oh, yeah, it was good, you know. We had a really good childhood. I think, you know, we had more time back then than people do now, you know. Dad was working, and he worked hard. He's always there. But Mum was a stay-at-home mum, so we always had family around, you know.
So then when it came to school, like, what kind of a kid were you? Like, what were your teachers say about you?
I reckon I was always a good kid, but, you know, a bit mischievous. And I don't know. I don't think school's meant for you when you're really young. You know, I really switched on. I wasn't, you know. If I did school, I reckon after 15 to 22 or something like that, might have been heaps better for me as an individual. But, you know, the young age, I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, it didn't click for you.
No, it didn't click. You know, had a choice to go year 11 and 12. And when I was going through year 10, everybody was sort of going to year 11 and 12 at that stage.
Yep.
Before that, most people left year 10, and then a few went on. But mine was sort of the age where everybody sort of went on to high school. And I did not left. I was like, man, get me out of here. Get me out of here.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what did your parents say about that? Like, were they okay?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. We went to some meetings for high school, and then I was like, nah, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. And so then, 10, 11 is when you found martial arts, right?
Yeah.
Or when your parents let you go?
Yeah.
Karate?
Yeah, karate.
Which style of karate?
Zendukai.
Zendukai. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And when you think back on that style of training that you were doing at Zendukai, like what was it like back then?
Look, I think when I started, you know, and doing it as a kid, it was I wasn't right into it hardcore or anything like that. You know, I was just sort of a kid going in there, and I only started that for a little while with a brother-in-law. Sorry, my brother-in-law's brother, he was doing it.
Okay.
So I was like, you know, I wanted to get into something. I didn't know what to do. And then that was the first one that I started. So I didn't do that for a real long time. I probably did that for about a year. Okay. And then I found Hapkido. There was a Hapkido school. Then I went and did Hapkido. And I spent a lot of years doing Hapkido. So I ended up getting to second or third there in Hapkido. I can't remember now. Yeah. But so I did Hapkido for a long time. That's when I came to this building that I'm currently, you know, I'm the owner of the business and the. Yep. So I was training here under another guy. He's around now still, Con Prasulis, and then he left. He was getting married and leaving to go live in Greece. Wow. And I bought the business off him, and then that's when, for me, my world all sort of started changing around the most, you know, because when I was here, we still had boxing and stuff, and my current coach, Joe. So I was training with Joe, I was training with Con, and then Con left, and then I took over all the classes, and then a couple other coaches that were here, unfortunately, just sort of all up and left as well. And I was like, oh, wow, mate, what do I do, you know? Yep. And so then I just had to make the business work. So I went from, I wasn't a kickboxer, I didn't know much about kickboxing, to just doing my best, mate, putting what I knew and what I'd learned and try to learn it a little bit on the side and get going.
Yeah, I think that's actually, you know, I think, you know, when you reflect back on that, it's probably a net positive, right? Because I think far too often, you know, especially when you come from a more traditional background, you know, you can sort of get stuck in that mentality that, okay, you know, I trained here, I'm a black belt now, and this is the way we do things.
Yeah.
And like the only way as a coach to upskill yourself is you still need to be going out and trying to learn things, right?
Yeah, even now you still got to, you know, I mean, my coach says it, and it's the most true thing. The day you stop learning is the day you just give up.
Yep.
You know, because if you're not learning anymore, you're wasting your time there.
Yeah.
You know.
No, absolutely. Okay, so then I just want to go back to, you know, the finish off the high school journey, right? Because you mentioned you became an aircraft mechanic, and like that's so I'm just trying to put the pieces together here. Yeah. So you leave in year 10.
I was like from like Dad was a builder, so we always did physical hands-on stuff, you know, and then with my older brothers, they were truck mechanics. Okay. So we sort of got into like that mechanical mindset. I was pretty handy. I can do stuff, you know.
Yep.
I can build a wall. I can do stuff. I'm pretty handy. So I went into the mechanics because I sort of, you know, no worries, mate. Pull my bike apart, put it back together, make this, make that. And then that was a job that sort of interested me. I was like, yeah, I work on airplanes, mate. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So leaving school, I had to get the job. Got the job at Bankstown Airport. I was only working on small planes, so single engine Cessnas up until business jets kind of thing.
Wow.
So then I did that for a number of years, and I enjoyed that. It was good fun. And everyone I worked with were all young guys too. So it was like growing up from being a kid out of school to being an adult in a short time, you know?
Yeah. So you would have had to do your apprenticeship, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Did what was the initiation back then?
Nah, you know what? They that's funny. They were we had one guy, Mick, and he was threatening me to tie me up and grease me. But we were working back one night. I was still only a first year apprentice, and he started mucking around, and then I grabbed him and I hip tossed him over. No. And then after that, all the talk of that went away. Yeah. But I'd come into work one day and go to lunchroom, put my lunch in there, and there'd be a grease tin, and there'd be some cable ties the next day, and I'll be like, these fuckers, they're going to get me sometime.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was like on high alert, you know. So as soon as he grabbed me that night, I was just, boom,
ready to punch
let him know, mate, you're not doing nothing.
Yeah, no, that's it was fairly commonplace, you know. Similar.
Oh yeah, I was terrible. I did that shit to people.
Yeah, it's almost like a rite of passage, right? And I guess, you know, in those sorts of environments, you're really working with a real wide range of personalities.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, obviously there are the kids who are a bit younger that have left school. There are also, you know, older mechanics who have just done it for like 20 years, right? And so there's a real I guess, you know, when you're sort of sheltered when you're at school.
Yeah, you are.
Because you're only dealing with people that are around your own age. And then you end up in this workplace where there's so many different personalities, and you have to navigate it, right?
Yeah. You got to work out, right? This guy's a wild, loose guy, and this guy's a real down-to-earth, easygoing, and
there's always one guy that's like always got to have a better story than you. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a guy that always used to say something like, "Oh yeah, my mate has X, Y, and Z." It's like no matter what you got, his mate's got something better.
100%. Yeah. My younger brother had a friend like that too. He was just always one up. And you're like, okay, mate, all right.
So okay. So then what did you do after the whole aircraft mechanic thing?
So then one of the guys I worked with, he got a job in DY. He was looking after human resources there. So then he goes to me, I'll come over and work over here, because we got on pretty well. And he goes, come work over here, man. It's really cool. But then I was driving from here, Beverly Hills, to DY every day and back. And I was like, man, this is a fucking trek and a half. And that was, you know, using lathes and CNC machines, balancing machines, welding. I did none of that. And I said to my mate, how am I going to do this job as a machinist when I don't even know how to use it? And he goes, mate, I'll teach you. Just whatever they ask you, just say yes. So I did this interview where I just said, yeah, man, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And they gave me the job. And then the first day on the job, they gave me a hunk of steel and said, look, we need you to make this coupling. Here's the drawing. So I go over to the lathe, try my best, and if it's a 3-jaw chuck, like a drill, you know, if you just turn it, the chuck comes together. this is a 4-jaw chuck where everything's individually. I couldn't even get the fucking thing
Centered.
centered. So, and this old bloke that I was working with, he come over and he's watching me. He goes, "You don't know what you're doing, do you?" I said, "I haven't got a clue." He goes, "Fucking get out of the way. Let me do it and I'll teach you." So that was like my second apprenticeship.
Yeah, nice.
Going there. And he took me under his wing. His name was the same as my dad, Peter. And then he shared the same birthday, but he was a year younger than my dad. So
No way.
it was pretty cool that, you know. And then, yeah, like I said, he took me under his wing and a couple of other guys, and they helped me learn how to use all the equipment and do all that job. So,
Yeah.
and then I enjoyed it. That was going from the airport where everyone I worked with, they were young. They were like in their early 20s. So we'd be going out, clubs and everything like that. So then I took this job where all the guys I worked with were all senior citizens, mate, in their 50s and 60s, you know, and then, but they'd show their stuff better.
Yeah. They had so much more experience.
Yeah, they had more experience and, you know, nothing fazed them. So the only thing in the end, I just got sick and tired of being in the workshop. I was always a person who can talk to people and very chatty and social. So I wanted to get out of that environment and into something else where I could be more social.
Yeah. And so then after the machinist place in DY, so is that when you decided you were going to do this full time, or was?
Well, I went overseas with my mate. We did a 2.5 month trip to Europe.
Okay.
So I went around Europe, and then I went back to work, and I was like, "Nah, I'm not going to be in this workshop." So that's when I quit.
Mm. Did anything happen in Europe that, like, you know, I guess? Okay, let me rephrase that. I always say that when you're young and you go and travel overseas, it's a real eye opener.
Yeah.
Like
I think that's what
matures
it did. You know, it just opened my eyes that, oh, look, there's a big world out there, you know, and don't leave yourself cramped up in one spot. See what opportunities can come. And the company I was working for were promising me an opportunity to go to Germany and do some training and learning and stuff like that. And then, you know, they just reneged. And I just said, okay, well, that was another reason, because I was like, okay, I was interested in doing the training and go live there for a little bit, see what happens, you know, but never eventuated. So I thought, okay, come back and, you know, mix my life up, you know. Do I want to be in the mechanical industry and in workshops? And I was like, nah, it didn't really do it for me.
So then, how did the opportunity for you to I guess buy this place come up? Like, because obviously you were training here.
Yeah, I was training here. So then I started. Well, after that, I started doing some odd jobs here and there. You know, I got a job as a secretary, front desk, for about 1 week, and then I was just playing solitaire the whole time.
Oh shit!
And then the boss rings down and says, "We've got meetings. I'm too busy. Don't put any phone calls through." And then someone called up, and I said, "They're too busy. They're in meetings, so they can't talk to you." And they got the shits, and then they told the boss, and they go, "You can't tell them." We said that. I said, "See you later." So I was done with that 1 week.
Yep.
Then I was doing some door-to-door selling for Optus long-distance phone calls, and that was an experience and a half. And then, then I started security. Then I got a security license.
Okay.
I was doing security, and then I was still training. So when I was doing all that, even working at DY, I was still training. I was doing my martial arts 2-3 times a week.
Yep.
And in the gym all the time.
Yeah. Let's hang on. I got to ask if there's any good stories out of the Optus long distance phone call selling.
I was telling my mates this morning how I had two incidences with a dog.
Oh no.
2 different dogs, different days. So one was trying to attack me, and I've got my clipboard, and I was just trying to make sure, you know, if it's trying to snap and bite me, I'm going to use that clipboard to sort of fend it off, or, you know, can't get through that. And it wouldn't stop, man. I'm trying to kick it, fuck off, kick it, and come back. And that was the first one. And then I ended up just sort of getting away from him far enough that he wasn't territorial anymore with me. And the other one was when I walked into a house that had a sign, you know, big fence and open front yard, and then had a, you know, dangerous dog. So, and I was calling out, and I'm tapping the fence, and the house is set a bit away from the front gate. So then I've opened the gate. I'm halfway up. This massive Rottweiler comes around the corner. I'm like, oh no, here we go. The owner comes to the door, and I said, "Mate, are you interested in Optus for long distance calls?" He's Nah, so no worries, mate. I'll just quickly turn around and smoothly get out of here before he dog jumps all over me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
There was a couple other little things happening, like with normal life, right?
Yeah.
You know?
It's always still. It's like when you reflect on those things, you always go, "Fuck, that was an experience, right?"
Yeah, definitely. The other thing is good, like to just, again, out of your comfort zone. I hate public speaking. I'm not really comfortable doing this, but I can do it, Yeah. And then going and knocking on someone's door, cold calling and doing that was like, oh, man.
It builds resilience, doesn't it?
Yeah. Take you out of your comfort zone,
Well, I think that's the only way to build resilience. And I can sort of, I've always been a little bit more extroverted from that perspective. But I remember when I was a kid, because my parents used to run their own businesses, and then so I might be there, and then they'd be like, "Oh, answer the phone."
Yeah.
And so when you're like maybe 10, 11, 12, answering a phone, you feel like very self-conscious.
Yeah.
And I actually carried that into work a little bit when I first started working, where it's like I didn't like to make phone calls in front of other people.
Okay.
Not for like that I was trying to hide anything. It's just
I think everybody's like that.
you
Everyone, like, as soon as you get your phone, you sort of like look for a quiet corner to I'm thinking, so what am I talking? I'm not talking. It's not like a love story going on.
It's not
here,
a secret.
So
Yeah.
So,
but over time, especially like I was in sales, right? So then when you go into sales, you that gets beaten out of you, right?
Yeah.
To the point where it's like now you're making phone calls on speaker, so everybody else can listen to the interaction and learn and try and learn like what went right, what went wrong.
Yeah. Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, sometimes it was a bit like that. And look, I probably came into the car industry at the tail end of the cowboy behavior. It was still there in some of the yards. Like I'd go to certain yards and I'd be like, oh yeah, I know what's going on here. Yeah. A bit of the white stuff and or some very happy coffees and people seem a little bit too friendly here, and they're too itching to go.
First thing in the morning, mate.
To wake them up. So yeah, but it cleaned up a lot. Like, well, I was never really interested in that sort of stuff because of martial arts. Like, that kept me on the straight and narrow the whole time. I didn't never really enjoy drinking. Like I don't mind like a nice glass of wine or a drink occasionally, but it's more for like I want to like if I'm going to drink, it's for the flavor or the taste, not to just get pissed drunk.
Yeah.
And so like I wasn't really a huge drinker or anything like that, and like partying never really got me excited. I'd rather go to training, and then if the party's still going, I'll go and show my head, and then
I didn't mind doing both when I was younger. Fight hard, party harder type thing sometimes, but. As you get older, you settle down and look back on experience. It's all life, right? What makes you happy? Do what makes you happy. That's what I think, and
So then
everybody ticks differently.
Yeah. So what happened after the odd jobs then?
So the security was the one that sort of brought me into something a bit more straight and narrow. Then I was here full time. So security came about when Con, who I was training with, and he was getting married, and then he was going to go move over to Greece. So I was like, actually, even as a kid, I did have a dream to know, that thing you say, if I had 3 wishes, what would I wish for? One of them was to be a martial arts master.
And there you go.
That was one of those as a kid. So then the opportunity came through Con. He's like, look, I'm going to get out of here, but if you want it, I'll sell it to you, and you can take over the classes, everything's sort of running. And I said, yeah, why not? So then I had to go to my dad. I had no money because there's all these bum around jobs. I just come back from Europe spending all my money and everything like that. And I said to my dad, look, I need to borrow some money off you. He's like, what for? So I'm going to buy this martial arts gym. It's like, wait. What are you going to do? You can't fucking make money doing that stuff. What are you talking about? I said, I'm going to give it a go. So he lent me the money, and I'm still here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually very nice of him to lend you the money, right?
Yeah.
A lot of parents would be like, nah, you're not going to fucking do that.
No. And back then, talking like this is 96, 97.
Yep.
Mate, there was I can't remember how many gyms. There was hardly any gyms around. There was me here. There was Thunder Legs. There was not even that many, mate. There's only a few other couple gyms around, and most guys were just still training out of school halls and things like that. So this is sort of like one of the first places, that was popping up in Sydney as a full-time academy.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
I think Nick Stone was around. You had, what are they called? I think they started after me, the kickboxing place up here. So there was only a few places John J and I was going, but he was out of another gymnasium, so it wasn't just a actual martial arts only kind of place. So definitely, probably in Sydney, I reckon. I mean, I didn't start it, so I can't take credit for it. But when I took over, it was still one of the first. You know.
Yep. So then, do you know what the reason was why all the other coaches suddenly just were like, fuck this, we're out, or?
I think because they had relationships with other people, and and then also once I took over and I saw, okay, so this guy's running Taekwondo here.
Yep.
And why is he not paying his share of the rent, kind of thing, So when I went, okay, listen, you have to pay this much. He's like, no, I don't pay that much because I only do this. And I said, yeah, but you got to pay. He's like, well, I don't make enough doing it, so I'm not coming in.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, shit. So I lost that one. Then I had another one. So, yeah, they just sort of fell apart because of, and people having different, paths. They wanted to try something else, moving out of the area. After Christmas, everybody always, have that Christmas break and everyone changes. Everything swaps around. People move on.
Yep.
So that's what I found happen a lot that was coming into a Christmas. And then after Christmas, it was like, okay, New Year's resolutions, they just sort of went.
So then how did that tie into your own fight career and competing?
Well, back then I wasn't really competing, to be honest. I was just training, doing, the old CCP tournaments for Hapkidos and, contact fighting and stuff. So to be honest, back then I was doing security, and one of the places I was working was Men's Gallery. It was like a strip club downstairs, And I was very fortunate that I ran into the manager, and he was a kickboxer from way back who'd been in martial arts. He's probably 10 years, 15 years older than me. And he'd just gone to Brazil with John Will, not that long before that. And he was, we were talking one night, and he was like, hey, man, you should get into this jiu-jitsu, like this is fucking, I reckon it's going to go somewhere. And I loved the wrestling because I grew up with the brothers, always mucking around. And I sort of got into Hapkido because I thought it was a bit like judo, a bit like wrestling. And so I came back and I just contacted John Will. I said, mate, can you come? I don't know, what do we do? How do we do this, mate? You're in Melbourne, I'm in Sydney. He goes, I come up and I do seminars 3 times a year, 4 times a year. So I just organised it, and he come up and started doing a seminar. I did the first seminar, and I didn't know anything. And so first seminar was basic circuit, armbar from mount, maybe a guillotine or something.
Yep.
And that was it, mate. From that moment on, I just never looked back.
Yeah.
I was like, yep.
So
I think I did the second seminar, and then there was no more Hapkido here. There was no more. It was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
All the way.
Yeah. So, and then back then, we're just getting a Blitz magazine every 3 months and looking, and there was 1 move or 2 moves. I'm like, okay, let's add that in, you know? Because I had no money. I was like living on poverty, and what I was making here with only a few students was breaking even. I was working security. I was still going out, having a good time, and so I just basically living the dream very poorly.
Like it's funny. Like a lot of people wouldn't even know what Blitz magazine or Kung Fu magazine is nowadays, right? Like it's Black Belt magazine. Like that was where you used to go to get information.
That's
right?
where you went.
You'd read the stories. You'd find out who's out there,
who's there, who's the guy coming up, and all that stuff. Yeah, definitely.
The internet killed all of that, really.
Mate, it's a game changer.
Game changer. The access to information just changed so much.
Yeah.
I'm a bit curious because, when you say John Will comes up for the first seminar, you learn a couple of basic moves, and then so when he goes away, how did you then implement that into the class? It was just literally guys were just going to roll.
Mate, we did the old drill 1 move 10,000 times.
Yeah.
That's all we did. And then like I said, then he come up. So I did that for the first, I think I did 3 or 4 seminars. So maybe 1 year, or just that 1 year tipped into the second year. Then the second year I went down to Melbourne and I did some training down at his place. I went down for 2 weeks and trained down there. And then I came back, and when he would do the seminar here, he had the 3 main guys in Sydney at that time, who was Anthony Lang, John Simon, and, oh shit, he'll kill me too, Sean Kirkwood from Newcastle. So they were the 3. Everywhere John went, they'd go with John because they're doing the same thing, right? They'd do the seminar series with John, and they'd pick up more moves themselves. So then I didn't know that was a thing. So after a while, I started asking John, look, do you mind if I tag along and drive? And then I think John Simon had his work or family, and then Anthony couldn't make it a few times. So then I started helping to drive John. And then you had Steve Percival. So John was, at that time I started, there was Steve Percival. I think he'd only recently started. Michael, I can't remember his last name either. He's another one who started out at Campbelltown. So there was a few of us. You had Rick Spain. So John would have his circuit, and then he'd have another time he'd come up, he'd do seminars at Anthony Lang's place and different guys' places. So, yeah, I did that. Then I hooked up with Anthony Lang. So he was the guy that I went as my first probably jiu-jitsu coach. Because John is good, but John, you get one seminar and then you don't see him. But as an instructor in teaching and, methodology for getting a point across and connecting, a thought process to moves and that, he's unparalleled, and the rest of us are all just, we find our own mechanism for doing that to our students, where he's traveling around Australia, the world, doing that. So then I hooked up with Anthony Lang. So then he became my coach, and I was training with Anthony. I'd travel to Manly every week. And just all private with him. So now I was working security here and then going to Manly, and just my money just went on just learning, And then Anthony had a little bit of a break. He was going through some relationship problem with his wife and that. So then I went to Larry Papadopoulos' gym.
Boxing
Works. Yeah, Boxing Works. So then I started working with Larry and Alex Cook back in the day, Ian Schaffer. And that's when I met Justin Turtle. And Justin ended up becoming my wrestling coach coming here. Yeah, so some good times just training through the day. I didn't do night times and stuff there because I was always here, but I was there Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He did classes. So, and you never knew who's there. So some days there's 10 people there, and then some days there's 2 people there. We just train the house down. Yeah, so that was the start.
Was it, when you think back on that style of training, like was it pretty hard on the body?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't have proper wrestling mats or anything back then. So the old 25 mil jigsaws, mate, smash my fucking knees up to pieces.
Knees, toes getting caught.
I mean, even in here, concrete wall, mate, we never had mats wall on the wall. Like I wear wall pads now, but we never had wall pads. A lot of people went into the walls here. But everyone survived, so what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
So then, because you competed in pancration, right? And so was that through?
So I started doing the jiu-jitsu comps was probably the start.
Okay.
And then through the jiu-jitsu comps, I got asked to compete in some MMA in pancrase, the first pancrase here. And I was like, oh man, I don't do that. I was fighting boxing, not kickboxing, but I was fighting as an amateur boxer at the time, and then done the jiu-jitsu comps. And then he's like, man, why don't you get into this, Chris, what's his name? He's a Canadian or American guy at the time, and he lived out here. He started with Larry Papadopoulos. They owned a gym together, and then I can't remember his last name, anyway, he said, look, I want to get you on my show fighting. So I was like, okay, fuck, I'll take a fight, So that's where it started for me. So I had that first pancrase, and then Con had the pancration. And then actually when I had that first seminar with John Will, that's when I met Con Pappy. So he turned up, and Con is Con, mate. You know when Con's in the room, you know?
Yeah.
And then we hit it off and become good friends. And then I just start wrestling with Con. So that's where the jiu-jitsu came with John Will, and the wrestling came from Con Pappy at the start. And then once I went to Boxing Works and met Justin, and then I started wrestling with Justin Turtle, and that's where, just went skill level right up.
So then how did the whole promotional side of things, how did you get involved in all that sort of stuff then?
Yeah. Okay, so I was fighting, and I was going to Queensland. I had some fights here in Sydney. And then it was I had a couple injuries at the time, and I'd had a few guys training with me who I wasn't giving them fights because I was just concentrating on myself. And then I was out. I had a broken hand. I think I was coming off my broken hand, and then I had a torn meniscus. So I just had surgery, and I was like, oh, okay. And then XFC called Justin
Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Justin Lawrence.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, he gives me a call and goes, I've got some fights, have you got anybody? I said, yeah, and I took a team, 4 or 5 fighters up. I think 5. I took 5 up the first time, and we got 4 wins. So we had like a really successful outing. I was like, oh, wow. He's like, mate, the boys fight. They come up. They did really well. So then we had another show we went up for, and then Warriors Realm had started. So we went up to Warriors Realm. And again, I took up another 5 or 6 athletes. And, we always had that result, 5 out of 6, 4 out of 5 kind of thing, So we're doing really well. And then one of my students, friend, fighter, he was supposed to fight on that, and he come off a motorbike. And he goes to me, Luke, you got all the fighters on this show, man. Why don't you just do your own show, And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about it kind of thing, But I go, yeah, you sort of make a good point. And then he talked me into starting a fight show. So that's how that got started, So we come back and then thought about it. He goes, I've got a friend who's a scumbag, but he goes, I've got a friend who can help us out, and he's a promoter, and he can do this and this and this. So then we had our first meeting. I was like, okay, well, let's do this. And then I was like, well, we don't have cage. We don't have anything. How are we going to do it, mate? So then I contacted Shane Barmer, and I talked him into letting me run a Sydney show. So I had to pay him for the rights for his using his name and everything, and did a Sydney show. And then we did the first one at Hurstville. So the very first show I did was Warriors Realm, Sydney, up at Hurstville. And that's when I'd met Hector Lombard. Actually, I met Hector Lombard when I fought on Warriors Realm in Queensland.
Yeah.
So I knew Hector, but, actually meeting him and getting to know him happened after my Sydney show.
Yep.
So, yeah. There was another guy around, Tony Bonello, who was running another competition, King of the Cage. So there was him and John Pedro. They were doing the King of the Cage stuff. And then I started our one, So Jim and I started our one together, and brought Hector in to fight Bonello, and then Bonello didn't want to take the fight. So then I matched up Tahuna. So... And then Jamie's shoulder popped out at the start of the round, and then they, Jamie got dropped, and then the referee had stopped it, and it was like Jamie got up, and there was a lot of confusion, and Hector's thinking, well, it should be finished, man. If the referee stops the fight, it should be finished. And the referee, Cameron Quinn, he's come over to me and gone, what do I do? I go, fucking start the fight, mate. So then he's restarted it, and then they've gone hammer and tong. It was a great, cracker fight. And then Jamie's shoulder popped out, unfortunately for him, and then he got ground and pound, and the fight was over.
Yeah.
And then Hector fucking going off at me. You fucking shouldn't be. Fight should have been over. I'm like,
sorry.
Better for the fans, mate. Better for the fans.
And so, like back, what year was this when you did the first one?
That was 04.
04.
Yeah, 04, I think. I think so, 04, 03, 04.
And then what was the,
05, I started CFC.
Yeah, so what was the reception like back then to
mixed
martial arts?
John, well, I mean, back when I was fighting MMA at a kickboxing show, so you only had there was only me fight, or me and my opponent, obviously.
Yeah.
And then
Rest of them were
maybe you had maybe one other fight MMA, and then you'd be fighting, and then as soon as you start wrestling, it'd be the calls from the crowd, you faggots,
Just stand up.
stand up, and all that sort of stuff. So I think the crowd's appreciation of it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Understanding, appreciation wasn't there. So I think when I started mine in Sydney, and then when obviously John Pedro, they had theirs, that was more, starting to tailor it, and we started targeting our audience. We didn't do, I'm going to put 2 boxing fights and 3 kickboxing fights, and then have a Muay Thai fight, then have an MMA fight. So, and that's what I've done my whole career for promoting, is I've never
straight away.
I just, I'm a purist, mate. You come to watch MMA, you don't get confused. There's not a kickboxing fight. There's not a wrestling match. It's just MMA from start to finish.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, so you did the first Warriors Realm in Hurstville.
And then they said to us, listen, it holds about 900 people. Just sell 800 tickets. But we can make the tickets and do it all ourselves. So we end up selling about 1,200.
Hey, it's better for the atmosphere,
Oh,
right?
man, I was fucking pumping. People over the top. I wish I should have a video of it somewhere. I don't even know. But, that was crazy, man. I've never felt like that. I mean, I have since, but that first feeling of walking out with your fighter into the cage and the crowd's just erupting and going off was just unreal. People over the raft. I've been to that place, Hurstville Civic Centre. I've been there for, boxing and kickboxing fights, but without, bragging too much, it's never been as packed as when I did that show there that night. That was crazy.
Well, you sort of oversold the joint, right? Because the regulations, obviously, it's not like today with CSA and all this sort of stuff, right? Yeah. Did you have to have excuse me, did the cops come up to the show?
Actually, the cops were there, yeah. And actually, one of my good friends and long-time student, he's now referee, Mark Christie. He was in the police back then too. So and he was fighting that night. He fought that night. He had a heap of his mates there. We had the police come. Yeah, we just went crazy with tickets. We had Richie Vass there. Richie Vass was fighting, and then all his mates, the Bra Boys, whatever, they're fucking smashed at the start of the night. He hadn't even fought, and they were smashed. They were on the tables, fucking tip of wine and stuff. So they got booted out before the fight.
Oh, they didn't even get to see Richard fight.
I don't know. I don't think so. They got booted out, mate. It was like, these guys are going crazy. He hasn't even fought yet. What are these guys are hammered. Get him out.
They're pre-drunk.
You're out. See you later.
Too funny.
Yeah.
They didn't cause any trouble though?
Nah. I never had it. I've been touch wood, never had any trouble. So I think if you put the right event on, and the right people will come, and if you're a fan of the sport, you're not there to prove how tough you are, and if you want to be in the audience and fight, then go to a gym, man. Start training and fucking hop in there and see what it's like.
Yeah.
We don't need heroes outside the cage and punching on and doing all that rubbish. We just want, go and support your friends and family and
have a good time.
I hear it where people get a bit hypo and they, get a bit aggressive, and they're like, "Oh, that's my mate in there." Just, mate, every single person who's in there is somebody's mate, friend, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, workmate, colleague, training partner. There's no different. Somebody in there is always doing that.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting one because I think a lot of the mentality. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the old school mentality was to get in there and fight with somebody, you almost had to hate them. Like some people need that animosity, right? And so they sort of build up, it's me against them and our team, their
I think
team.
definitely the old days, that was a lot of that because, you just didn't like people, like Paulo Guimarães, when he started, I did not like Paulo, I don't know if he did not like me or just, didn't care, whatever. But there was respect, but there was also the, oh man, I would fucking love to fight that guy back then.
Yeah.
But now he's a good friend of mine, and I really regard him highly because, and even back then I had a lot of respect for him. And that was probably why the skill, the challenge and all that stuff. But, that's how we all were back then, you sort of like, yeah, man, I'd love to fight that guy. And then you sort of had a little bit of a personal, I don't know, personal or not, but it was more that competition. And we were all starting off back then. It was all in infancy. So everyone had to prove himself. You had to prove yourself, you know. These guys lying, who are they, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
You had to make yourself,
it's
this is who I am.
Meritocracy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, previous skills, show us what you got.
Yeah, show us what you got.
You're not going to get respect unless you get in there and you're winning.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how did the idea then sort of become the idea to start CFC and Cage Fighting Championship?
Well, that was the start, was doing it, that show. You know?
The Warriors Realm show?
Warriors Realm was like, let's see if there's a market for it. Let's see if we can do it well. And like I said, we cranked it. And then right from the very first show, then that one of the partners had ripped me and the other partner off from the start. So
oh no. Was that just on ticket sales or everything?
Yeah, on everything. He had the access to the bank account that we didn't have, and he just fucking ripped us. Oh wow! So there was a lot of learning going on, you know. And then we stayed with that guy because my mate said, "Nah, he's okay, you know." So he wasn't. He was a piece of shit. But we didn't know that. Should have known better. Anyway, trust your gut.
Look, you know. When you think about the world of combat sports, even like, you know, boxing and all these other, you know, gentleman sports, as they'll try and say, it's the Wild West. Like
it's the Wild West. Well, it used to be the Wild West. I think, you know, that's good with the combat sports.
Yeah, they cleaned it up a lot.
It's cleaning up heaps, you know. I mean, I've met some pretty fucking interesting characters, you know, doing the promotion. more in the gym, you meet everybody.
Yeah.
You know, you get the highest, you know, to the lowest. So you get everybody, you know. So it just depends how you go and how you click and what that person is really like, because he might be just a, you know, piece of shit who wants to hurt people. And you know, I find, you know, I've had people come in who want to learn how to fight, how to hurt.
Yeah.
They don't last here because we're competitive, mate. We're just going to be on you and bash you. And people who want to bash other people up don't like getting bashed up.
Yeah, you get what you give.
You get what you give, and they don't last. So, you know, I'm pretty comfortable to say in here, every single person who's in here, my gym, you know, I like them. They're good people, you know. They'd be someone you can trust on the street.
Yeah.
You know, not going to do any harm to you.
It's a filtering process, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of, like, it's funny when people go, oh, jiu-jitsu for everyone, but then hang on a second.
Yeah. No.
Some people you don't want. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, okay. Can we talk? Let's talk a little bit more about CFC, because that, you know, that obviously grew pretty significantly, right?
Yeah, it was fucking huge. It was
a
good.
ride,
I was pretty.
wasn't
Yeah, it was a ride, man. It was a shame that it came to an end, but you know, it had run its course with who we were, you know, at that time. So,
and why do you think that is? You know,
just two different people in charge and two different directions. So it just didn't work out. It was a shame, actually, because I reckon if we had have got through that next couple of years, I wouldn't have continued on with my partner. I love him as a person, but I would never work again with him. But, you know, and that's what it came down to in the end, you know, just our personalities and that were, you know, what we were expecting from it was going different ways. And we needed to separate. And I tried to buy the business off him, and, you know, he didn't want to separate. We sort of, okay, we'll try keep going as we are. And I think we did 2 shows and I was done. Did
it impact like the quality of the show, you reckon, or was it just more your own mental space that it sort of impacted?
Yeah, I don't think it impacted the quality. I think that was always, you know, I'm pretty good like that. You know, I mean, I've done shows with tragedy in my life, and I've still, you know, the show must go on kind of thing. And that's my approach to life as well, you know. Mate, really bad things happen. People who are really important in your life pass away, and, you know, you still got a job to do, mate. You know, they're gone, okay. You still got to go on, right? Yeah. It doesn't finish, you know. You can't just sit in the corner and feel fucking bad for them. And, you know, you can feel bad for them and still operate as a human being and do what you need to do, because you have all these other people who are relying on you.
Yeah.
You know? They've all done the training, they've done the work, and you got everybody's, things are still in place. You still got a venue hire, you still got trucks, you still got fighters, and you've bought all flights and tickets and everything's happening. You can't just shut down.
So if it's not something you want to talk about, we don't have to talk about it. But when you mention tragedy, like, is there a particular
I had
thing that comes to mind?
Well, two. One was I lost my brother, and we had his funeral on the day of one of the weigh-ins.
So what was his name?
Chris, yeah, my older brother, one of my older brothers. So he passed away tragically from a heart attack.
Oh,
it was like, just get that phone call shock that he just had a massive heart attack and passed away. And the other one was my wife's sister, so my sister-in-law, where she had a head-on crash where a driver had just fallen asleep behind the wheel, gone across the median strip and just ploughed straight into her. And then he survived and she didn't, and she left behind 3 kids and husband and,
They're pretty tough ones,
Yeah.
And, it's in those instances, like, I don't know what your stance is in terms of, like, faith and spirituality or religion or whatever, but, like, a lot of people can go through those circumstances and be very, very angry at life, right? Like, angry at God, angry at whatever, you name it, they're going to be angry about it because, like, how does this work? You do the right thing and you're the one that's gone.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And the person that does the wrong
thing.
thing.
And then the justice system comes and the guy's still, no problem, mate, like, I don't know. Unfortunately, we're all going to die. And we're all going to die a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So
we all end up in the same place.
Yeah, man. I've seen my grandmother die of cancer. My dad died of cancer. I don't know. Heart attack. Yeah, I don't know. It's tragic. It's. I suppose I think more of. I was fortunate that I had pretty good relationships with everybody who passed away, and then, like we were talking about earlier with your friend, and then he actually had lunch
dinner,
with you, had dinner, and then
that
that was like the
later.
farewell.
Yeah.
And I had like a couple little experiences where I'd actually, for some reason with my brother, I'd actually called him, probably a week before and had a chat with him. And, like we don't really call each other as family, just if he's at a barbecue, we'll see each other and hear, but not really on the phone. But I hadn't seen him for a while and I called him up and we had a good chat. So, like after he passed away, I suppose that was the part I fell back on and said, yeah, okay. I had a chance to have a chat with him, and it was just a shame because he'd had his eldest daughter, stepdaughter, she was getting married and kids were growing up, and so just there's never a good time, but that was terrible.
Yeah. And just while we sort of finish off this line of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's your thoughts in terms of like your own mortality, right? Because we're all, as you said, we're all going to die eventually. Like,
yeah.
How do you view that, and like, does that?
I wouldn't like to go soon because it'll be too soon. I don't know. Look, you just live your life and try to do what you can. Like I'd like to be just remembered as a person who has good intentions, and I'm a real person. What you see is what you get, and if you're in that friend space, you get unconditional respect and love and that. And then I've worked hard for what I've done, and I think I created like a little bit of a legacy, hopefully, and just meeting good people, so I can look back and say, with my family, I love my family, and we have our ups and downs as everyone does, but the love is there at the end.
Let's sort of segue a bit because you brought up family, right? And one of the things we were talking about before we kicked off the podcast was just like that impact of obviously being in a gym, and then when we got shut down for the scamdemic, so to speak, it did give you that silver lining of having more time with family.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
So, well, like I said, I've been here 27 years. So, and then I actually haven't had longer than 2 weeks out of this place. In that 27 years, like 2 weeks at a time, I had to shut down for Christmas for 10 days or whatever, or go away for a holiday for 5 days, 6 days. So I've never been out of here and not been in the gym training for 24 years then. At that time, 24 years or 25 years without having time. And I was like, man, I've got long service leave. The government's giving me money. I got to sit at home. And the first lockdown, could still like come and do some lessons. And, I didn't come to the gym and open up the gym, but still did 1 or 2 privates and whatever, just a bit of cash. And I actually turned this place into a Saturday afternoon casino with a couple mates where we just play poker and drink. And we locked away from everybody. Yeah. And that was the first lockdown anyway. But, what we're talking about with the family was having the gym and being here for all the time is I missed out on like that, having dinner with the family, sitting down at the table and, 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon, I leave the house. That's when the kids were coming home. So I've missed out on taking them to their football and their soccer and their netball and anything else, that we sort of got into. Not netball, the girls did soccer, and then, basketball. And then the kids were coming and training with me, and we moved to Liverpool, so we had this long trek back and forward. So I just sort of missed out on, spending time with my kids and my family. I sometimes feel like I've spent more time with everyone else's kids than my own. So in the lockdown, at the start you sit at the table and no one would be talking, and then, we'd just start to say, right, well, there's nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do. So then you start getting comfortable sitting around the table and talking for 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, and just enjoy each other's company. And I was just saying to you that I think my kids didn't really know my personality that much because they'd see me, but they'd get like just small windows, me in the morning, me in the early afternoon, coming home just before they go to bed. And then they had me on a whole Sunday, and then, we'd all be they'd be trying to do stuff, or we'd try to do something as a family, but just sitting down talking and just getting my opinions and my thoughts and theirs, and it was really nice. I think we as a family we just really reconnected through those 2 lockdowns.
And brought you guys closer together.
Yeah, definitely.
Did that make it harder to come back to the gym when it opened up?
Yeah, it did. Like that was hard not to have that experience, but that made me change certain things. So instead of me trying, because in my life, like I said, I took over the gym and everybody left, and it was like up to me to do this and up to me to do that, that I just always try to control stuff, and then I never relied on other people. I would never say, hey, listen, you mind just doing that? Doing it all the time, kind of thing. Where now I've got some of my students, instructors, who I just really depend on them, and I feel like that's unconditional from them too. That they're willing, they want that too, and helping out and coaching, and that's allowed me to go, right, I'm going to be able to go home and I'm going to have this dinner with my family now a couple nights a week. So that changed. Yeah.
That's
so
a blessing.
that was something that we changed. Yeah. So it was good.
Yeah. So then, I guess, talking about the gym, and I guess, there's been a numerous amount of athletes that have come out here over the years. We were sort of saying before, is probably like the 5th generation of up and coming fighters out of here now.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess can we go through each of the generations and some of the notables and I guess some of the stories as we go through that?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, definitely. So I had like Dylan Andrews, Josh Payne, Justin Turtleford, a lot of people that I've trained, and I don't have high turnover of students. I have long-term guys that are here that train and then they move on with their life. So I don't put any ads out and get heaps of new, you're not getting new people coming in all the time. I think that's part of, get a cool group and let them work and let them work and let them work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had that fight team with Dylan Andrews, Tony Ballou, Theo Sakarakis, Andy Kappas, Josh Payne. So they were like the first group of fighters, and then Adam Sarkis. Oh, I'm going to forget names now going through them, but, Mo Abu Naim, Muhammad Kandil, Rob Lasita, Kian Pham.
Yep.
And Mark Christie, obviously, Michael Bellos. So we just had like all these different guys, and some were super talented, and some were just super eager to get in there and have a go, and we're always pretty competitive. So we had good results over the years.
Yeah. Do you, when you sort of see like the the different generations sort of come through. I would always used to say it's like, at the places that I used to train, it was like you'd have a group of people that would start, and say there's a group of 5 friends from high school or something like that, and then of that 5, you probably only keep 1 or 2 that will stay longer term, and the others will drop off. But then they sort of then become part of your core group, and then the next group will join.
The same deal happens.
Same deal happens right?
Until that the guys who are all staying have then that friendship bond that our friendship bond is that we're in the gym training every sort of day. Yeah. Where at school you're mates at school because you're at school together. Yep. Then you start working and then you have these mates from work, and then the gym is that environment too. Yeah. So you could have your whole life. You got your friends, you got your family, and then you have your gym family. Yeah, that's right. And then you're only rolling and sweating and bashing in your gym family, so you become pretty close.
Yeah. It's a fast way to break down barriers. Barriers, right? Yeah. But it's funny because you get so used to these same people that you always roll with or spar with or whatever, or train with. And that sometimes it's like you might have a normal conversation with them, and then it's like, shit, I didn't know you did that. Like it'll be like, you get somebody with a weird occupation that you never heard of, and it's like, what? That's what you do? Yeah. It's like, oh wow, would never have picked it. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But then you also get the guy who's done 2 fights 20 years ago. Choose your ear off about fighting. You're like, man, I just want to watch my kids play soccer. I've got a gym. It doesn't matter. I want to sit here and talk about it all day.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, how did what was your experience with Hector? Because obviously he comes up a lot, in lots of people's podcasts. He's been all around the world. He's trained all around the world. He's probably been in and out of quite a few gyms and welcomed and not welcomed.
Yeah, look, so that came around when he came down for the Kyle Noak fight. Yep. So he wasn't really training here at that time. He was training at 5 Rings with Roy Luxton up in Gold Coast. Mm-hmm. So he was training up there, and I think getting to their sort of last feelings for each other, and then he was like, "Oh, can I just come down here and train for a couple of weeks?" And I said, "Yeah, no worries." So he come down with 2 other guys, and that was okay, mate, because you didn't know him, So come in, and then I sparred him. I was pretty much his main sparring partner back then. So I would be sparring him, and then he'd be sparring with the guys. And, he was okay. At the start, he was okay. He was a lunatic, but he was okay, There was no beef, no problems, anything like that. Then over the course of, the years, that's when it just starts, mate, and he would come in and just think, what are we going to have today? What is there going to be drama? And he's just a very I'd say emotional. He's pretty emotional, and quite opinionated. And I think that's what caused a lot of problems. And then he's very physical, and I don't think he had that sense of humor or that mindset for what's the word? If somebody said something and they meant it in a different fashion, he wouldn't get the slander, or he wouldn't get that. Yeah. So then that would make him be a bit hostile. Yeah. So we had a couple incidences here with him, and one was, his judo was incredible, and his ability and his skill, and really like one of the best fighters I've seen, Right. And he just had that emotional off switch. He didn't care, man. The empathy went, boom. He is a killer. He'd get in there and he would smash your face in if that's what he had to do. Yeah. It's a fight. We have to do that. So it was funny because he had a fight. He had a couple of fights on CFC, and then he had a fight on Paulo run another show with some guy. The Hexagon was called. Okay. And then they brought out a Brazilian for Hector to fight, and they said, we're going to allow soccer kicks to the head, Now, Hector bashed this guy in the first round and went around and just almost kicked his head off. And then at the end, the not Paulo, but the other guy who was the business guy behind it comes up to me and goes, look, I'm not going to give Hector all his purse because he shouldn't have done that kick, mate. Like that was too far. The guy was already out. I said, well, the referee hadn't stepped in, and
Yeah.
I said, mate, you made the rules.
Yeah.
You made the rules. So you're going to get this guy and say you can do soccer kicks, and you're going to let this maniac do it. You're going to get what you get, mate. That guy's he's going to get his head kicked off.
And did you tell him, hey, you can tell Hector he's not going to get his first?
And that's what I said to him. He goes, well, I'm going to take money. I said, listen, mate, you go tell Hector you're going to not give him his purse.
Yeah.
Nah. He wasn't going to do that. But, I mean, look, when we had the first show, I'll tell you one or two stories. That's it, and then we'll leave him to bed. Otherwise, you know, I mean,
no. Look, and the point of it isn't to have any beef or anything. No. I think it's just when you have there's these big personalities in the sport. Yeah, it's always good to be able to share like the different perspectives on it, right? Yeah, because some people would say that he's a clicker and he's just can't control himself. But on the flip side, when you look at what that ability to turn on and have that killer instinct does for when you want to compete, well, that's a competitive advantage. That's some real fucking fight or flight survival shit. Yeah, really. I
still never heard anybody hit someone so hard on the ground, even stand up, that I would hear him, man. The sound of him hitting somebody in the head with a punch or an elbow was just brutal. Like he just, I would not want to fight that guy, And mate, like Kyle Noak, who I fought, and then he fought Hector. He took fucking everything Hector had, and then he came out through the end of that on the other side, coming back stronger, you know, and it is, wow, man. That's some of these guys, they're superhuman. Some of the things that they can take and get through and do is amazing. Yeah. But we had the first show. I'll tell you this one. With Hector, we had the first show. He come down to Sydney, and he's just a mad rooter. So he was rooting this bodybuilder girl, and he was staying with her. And there was the two other guys come down with him, and she's going out with some gangster.
Oh no!
And the gangster's got his jet ski at her house. They're arguing. Hector's staying there because he's rooting her. And then this gangster's come up going, I want to come and get my boat, blah, 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 blah. And Hector's like, I'm going to go out and fucking sort this guy out. And she's like, no, don't. He's very dangerous, very dangerous. And then she went out to sort it out. Then Hector's come out, and then he's seen Hector. And it's, fuck, what's going on here? So he's pulled out a gun, and Hector's fucking hidden behind the car, grabbing rocks and fucking chucking rocks at him. And the guy's running away, shooting behind him.
Oh, no.
Like, this is just fucking like 3 days before the show. I'm like, man, what the fuck?
What are you doing?
What have we got this guy down at my gym for? He's a lunatic. Yeah, so anyway, all that problem got solved and, taken care of. So we didn't have any drama flowing on with that. But that was my introduction to the mentality of Hector. Someone's got a gun pulled at him and he's throwing rocks at him. He just doesn't care, mate. Wasn't scared of anybody, anything,
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, we'll do our first show. This guy gets shot. Now we're going to be in the paper for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's not going to help to bring.
And then the other story about Hector, and this is Hector in a nutshell. He just we're in a club after his fight.
Oh no!
And then he's hooked up with some girl who's with two other guys, and then I was out the front, and then these guys, I can hear these two guys going, I'm fucking going to go say something to him. I'm going to fucking, don't do it, I'm going to say, fuck him, he's not that big. I'm going to say something. Then another cue, Hector just walks out of the top of the front of the club, down the stairs, and this guy just walks up to him. Before he even gets a word out, bang, left hook.
No.
He's gone, mate. This guy's gone. He's gone to hospital. He's in hospital in a fucking little induced coma for a couple of days because he was that hard fucking hit. We're like, let's get the fuck out of here before the cops come.
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah, that was the introduction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I got to bring this one up because we were talking about this in the office. Ebersol. Ebersol.
Yeah.
And there was a little stoush when he had the belt and then he didn't. There was a fight he couldn't do or something, and then it's just so I think so. Brian was saying
with Brian
to us,
and Hector, or with Brian by himself.
So Brian had like the CFC belt at some point.
Yeah, the lightweight. Yeah,
and then I think you were trying to match him for the next show to defend the belt.
Yeah.
And then Brian said I think he had some kind of injury or something like that, so he couldn't grapple.
Brian went to India and tells me that he can't fight because he was in the Ganges and he drank the water.
Oh no!
Like 1 week out from the fight, I'm like, mate, are you fucking serious? I don't remember doing that anyway. Don't strip him.
No. Yeah, so I think something like I don't remember the full story, but it was being talked about in the office, and I just thought I've got to bring it up with Luke just to see what his version of events. But I think what happened was like you were trying to, according to Brian, you were trying to match him for a fight, and he couldn't do an MMA fight for whatever reason, but something happened where like he took a kickboxing fight or something, and then you were a little bit upset with him because like, mate, you're not fighting on my show, but you're doing a kickboxing fight. Like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And then I think you wanted to strip it, you wanted the belt back or something like that, and maybe you sent you a picture of the belt somewhere.
Mate, those belts, like the belt that I used to make was like nothing else you've ever seen, mate. We actually got them die cast in Sydney. It was proper gold and white gold rhodium, and it was just put together on they were fucking some serious chunky belts. A couple of guys have got it. Hector actually, unfortunately, Hector had them at his ones here at somebody's house, and the guy got robbed and his belts got stolen.
No way.
As part of it, so he had like 3 of them, and his belts all went because every show you give someone the new belt.
Yep.
But Brian's have one, Adrian Pang has one, Shane Nix she'll have 1 or 2, Bernardo Treco.
Yep.
So they've all got the originals. I mean, probably by today's standard, you look at a new one and say, oh, that looks nicer, but you didn't realise, mate, we didn't have that knowledge how to make those belts. We just, had a friend, my partner, his cousin's husband was a jeweler. We just organised this massive fucking chunky brass, steel, with all gold plating and that done. So, yeah.
They're a good looking belt.
Yeah, they were good looking, mate. They were one of a kind.
Yeah. Yeah, nice little bit of mixed martial arts history in that.
Yeah, definitely. If you got one of them, hang on to them. And I made belt buckles too. So if you got a belt buckle, you're a lucky man.
Wow, okay.
Rob Whittaker's another one. He'll have a couple of those belts at home.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So then, talk to us a little about then the genesis of Superfight, because that's been running for a little while. I think it was the 20th show just was the recent one.
Yeah.
So after CFC, you stopped that. You did the New South Wales AMA, which we were talking about at the start of the conversation. Did that for a little while, and then...
Well, with CFC, every fighter was a pro fighter. And then I finished that, and then I was like bumming around, and then, Compappy goes, oh, come on, let's do something together, let's do something. So I said, okay, well, let's do something. And that stage, then Hector had left, and a few of my main guys had all moved on with themselves and that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll start an amateur body. And this is still before combat sports came out.
Yep.
So then I started running that and making fighters do blood tests. Very similar to what's happening now with combat sports, they had to do a blood test and medical.
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Yeah, and then just matching people up, and we had headshots and we had blood rules and things like that. We just did it on flat mats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mat sport style.
Yeah, mat sport style. And, they ran pretty well, and we got better at how we ran it. And that was going good. Then combat sports come in and said, okay, well, now you got to pay this much money and you got to have a doctor and it's got to be this. And I was like, oh, fucking hell, man. I'm not even making any money. I'm just doing this for the love of the sport. We'll already have everything that you're asking. We're already doing. And now you're telling me I have to have X, Y, Z. So for me, it was more that, well, to do this now, I've got to do a proper show.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, if I'm going to have to do a proper show, then I'll just do a proper show. So I started going, okay, well, I'm not going to bring CFC back. That's, CFC's
done and dusted.
Done, because I said to my partner when we finished up, look, mate, we'll just keep it, I won't do it, just separated. So I was like, what am I going to use? What name? And then there was Habby Hesk over in Perth had Superfighter Australia. That was his show, Superfighter Australia. And I always liked the name. And I was like, I don't want to rip him off. But then I was thinking, Superfight, And then I was going past some van and had the red and blue on it, and I was like Pepsi almost. But
Yeah.
it wasn't a Pepsi; it was some other business. And I was like, oh yeah, man, red and blue and Superfight, and I was just sort of visualized it a bit, and then got the graphic made, and it was like, boom, Superfight was born.
Yep.
So then I was like, okay, I want to do a show, and at that stage. Also, I had everyone saying, man, when are you going to bring CFC back? When are you going to bring CFC back? You're going to do something. We've got fighters. I was like, yeah, perfect. All right. Well, okay, listen, guys, I've started a new one, Superfight. We're going to start off. First show at the Croatian club. Send me a list of your fighters, and I got fucking donuts. No, first show I did, I had like 6 fighters, and, five of the 6 fight card were from my place, you know. So I was like, here we go. Now everyone's saying to me, start. Then they've got nobody. I'm like, oh, why did I do this again for?
Yeah.
But then it just slowly grew up and built. And, I sort of had this fighting urge to try to make Superfight to be CFC. But to be honest, that's, I had my 15 minutes of fame. So I don't think, that's for me to try to push it and be a global phenomenon and that. People don't realise with CFC, we were shown like 16 countries in Asia.
Yeah.
I was in Singapore for 1FC and then Superfight, in Indonesia for 1FC, and CFC came on the TV being shown because they had the rights for it, So we had that there. We had it in America. It was shown in England. It was shown in New Zealand. So we had like these TV deals starting. They were in place, and
big
like I
production.
said, we were starting to get up there, and we needed sponsorship and stuff at the time. But like I said, when the nucleus of the project, it was me and my partner weren't getting on.
It's very hard.
And then he didn't want to get out, and I didn't want to go on with him, and we had to. It just fell apart. It just self-destructed.
Yeah. So do you think that Superfight could get back to that sort of status?
Look, in lockdown, I had to think about what I want to really achieve now doing this, and I've had Dylan Andrews and Hector make it to UFC, but they didn't take me. They'd moved on, then they got picked up. So my focus now, my main sole focus is for me to get my team into whether UFC, PFL, all of them,
One championship,
everywhere, you name it. So
onto the big shows.
we want to just take these guys and get up there, get a belt,
Yeah.
Suppose as a coach, I want to be a coach who's been able to take somebody to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so hard because like there's so many things that go into when you think about being a gym owner, let alone being a coach at the gym, and then thinking about what do you want to get out of doing it, right? Like there's so many different avenues that you can go, and I think when most people go into being gym owners, the first step is just trying to stay afloat, really. You're trying to run a viable business so that you can feed your family.
Yeah.
Right. And so for some people, they focus more on the business dynamics and how do we run a gym that's going to be commercially viable or commercially profitable. And then for others, it's like, as we know, like there's no money for fighters.
The answer
There's no money
is
in
don't have fighters. You want to know how to have no money, have fighters.
Yeah, because they take, well, not to say they take everything, but they require a very high level.
They're doing that, It's a tough slog, man. It's a real life balance challenge, to be successful as a fighter and then also eke out a living as a fighter because you got so much into training, and unfortunately, still within this country, and I'd go back to CFC. I'm paying people more back then than anybody's ever been paid now. No one's paying 20,000 plus for fighters now. You know,
it's crazy,
paying
isn't it?
that back then, man. Like,
Really?
fucking
That kind
looking,
of
I looked after people, mate. Like I said when I went into it as a fighter, I never got opportunities and I never got any good money. And I said, I'm going to change that, So then, probably to my own detriment, it's probably a better business paying everybody nothing and keeping all the money. But
But I think longevity wise, like it's one of those things. You get more in return when you look after people.
Yeah,
you know, there's that collateral.
but unfortunately, still there's not the funding and the backing through shows. So, as a fighter right now in Australia, if you're the best pro in Australia who's not signed, you're basically a part-time worker. You know, you got the equivalent of a fucking weekend job. You know, the amount of money that you make, you're not doing it for money. You're doing it for opportunity and for love. You're not doing it for money, you know? So, which sort of goes against what's a pro? What is being a professional about?
Yeah.
Making money, right?
Yeah.
Making a living off it. But unfortunately, we don't have access, or we don't have some freaking billionaire like Chantry going, all right, guys, I'm going to back here. Let's put everyone on wages and let's make some money and let's put shows on and, you know.
But even that's an interesting one, right? And I won't go into it in too much detail, but essentially there's a little bit of locational arbitrage there, right? Because
population.
Population, value of the dollar in some of those countries where the employees come from, right? You know, to hire somebody from Australia, like nowadays, like you look at what you need to buy a place in Sydney, like freaking hell, like it's ridiculous, right? Yeah. So as a result of that, you know, the only thing that can help to sort of take away the sting of inflation is wage growth. But you know, it's not feasible to be paying everybody $100,000 to do basic jobs either, right? Yeah. So whereas, you know, you go to another country that might be a third world country, and you know that what we get paid in a month is probably what some people might make. You know, in 6 months or a year. Yeah. And so from that, you know, there is a lot of opportunity from that perspective. They can employ a lot more people power to put on the productions that they do. Right. Whereas, you know, we're sort of cost prohibitive here. Like you know, you think about back when you were running CFC, like what are the costs to run a big show like that? You know, it's huge, right? And then now if you were to put that with today's standards, with inflation and everything else, like your costs just balloon out the window.
Like I said, you know, you need to find people who have money that they don't mind spending and they have to be passionate about the sport. So maybe it just hasn't been around long enough to have that sort of backing and investment. But hopefully, you know, there's these billionaires overseas who are getting into the sport, even at the Jiu Jitsu Foundation level, that might, you know, swing around, and we need a couple of those in Australia to do it and get behind it.
Yep. So I guess I want to talk about this before we finish off. In terms of like when it comes to, so you got this new goal of wanting to get your guys to the highest levels, and you know, as we sort of said, you're sort of in like this fifth generation of fighters that you're bringing through now. Yeah. In terms of how you approach like the athlete development and like trying to train these guys up, like do you find your current crop of fighters, has that come from guys that, you know, were doing kids classes with you, or are these guys that, you know, have come here and, you know, want to be a part of the
definitely this group now have been training for, you know, longer than they've been alive. So as long as they've been at school. So they've started a lot younger. They've been around it a lot more. They're all kids, and now, you know, you go through that dynamic too of, you know, I'm talking to you as an adult to a, you know, teenager, you know, student. Yeah. To now I'm talking to you as, you guys are men now, mate. You're not even young men. You're becoming men, you know. So it's you know, the dynamics are changing, and, you know, the language changes because, you know, there's a different respect that you have to have, you know. Not that you don't respect them when they're young, but obviously they're more subservient, and you ask them to do something, they'll do it, you know. When you get a man in front of you, you start, okay, well, let me explain why we're doing this so that you understand and you're on board with the process too. And then I'm very, you know, fortunate that these guys now, they've clicked. They're not just guys who turn up at the gym and have that relationship because they're in the gym. They're hanging out outside the gym, and they're all, you know, like even the second group coming behind the guys I've got, you know, like, well, I've got Mike, Chris, George, Joe, Leon, Jordan, you know, the guys that are coming through behind them, you know, Chris Morris, Ajay, Abraham, Marwan. Isaac, you know, Marwan, all these guys coming up through behind that. Okay, they didn't start at the same time, but now they're blending in, you know, they're all getting on, and there's this group chat going on that we send messages, and they're all talking to each other, and then they're getting together and they're training, they're doing different stuff. So it's really good to see. And then they've got now another group coming and joining. So
Yep.
It takes time to build that relation. It doesn't happen automatically, but you set the ground rules for, how you want your gym to operate and what is acceptable, banter and things like that, and how everyone should be. And you've got to keep that ethos,
the culture.
Everybody's there, the culture's there, everybody's on board, and if somebody disrupts that culture, well, you don't want to change your culture, that's what's winning, that's what's getting you there, that's what's doing it,
People have to.
Sometimes the individual has to.
Yeah, you got to assimilate them into the culture.
Either you join us or you don't.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not going to happen the other way. Kind of thing.
And I guess when you think back on like all the champions that have come through, in the sense of like, you think about the CFC champions and all these fighters that you've dealt with over the last 27 years, is there any commonality of like whether it's a particular trait or a mindset that you've noticed about these guys that that have gotten them to this high level, or that helps to get them to the high level, or like is there a particular discipline or approach?
Look, I'll just use an example with Rob Whittaker. I remember when I knew Henry, and then he goes to me, "Oh man, I've got this young kid, Rob Whittaker. Can we get him a fight on CFC?" And he just had a fight in Perth on XFC. I'm like, yeah. And then he's fighting Richie Walsh.
Yeah.
And then Steve Percival and John has said to me, "Oh man, we saw this Richie Walsh fight in Manly. Mate, this kid's a fucking stud. He's like the real deal."
Yep.
So I was like, all right, well, he's only had one fight, and then Rob Whittaker's only had the one fight. I go, same weight, I'll just match those two guys up, make the best of it. And I remember, because I was sitting at the judges' table at that time with my partner, and Rob had come in, and then Richie Walsh has got a mohawk red down the middle. He's coming in, and then you look at Rob, he was like a kid in his face, and my partner goes, "Oh, what do you think of this one?" I said, "I think this kid's going to get killed, mate." From what I've heard, I go, "We'll see how he goes." And then, wow, man, Rob's just like all over Richie. Richie didn't even know what hit him, mate. Like this fucking kid came from nowhere, and he's a superstar. Like you could just see from how he performed, mate. The guy, every fight he had on CFC, he was fight of the night. There's just something about him. Just using him as an example. I think the really great ones, they can lift in those moments. They elevate that's what themselves. Separates.
Yep.
And they have the same feelings, emotions as all of us. The nerves, but they have a switch, boom, and just, man, I read a really good excerpt from I can't remember, it was like an old Greek philosopher. And it was, you'll have 100 warriors, out of the 100 warriors, most of them are cannon fodder, they're there, they're making up numbers, but 10 of them are, they're fighters, they're really, but out of the 10, there's one, he's the hero, he's the guy, so, it comes down to percentages. Not you don't have special athletes. Everyone's important in that, but a real special athlete. That man, you can just when you see that guy, I don't know what makes him tick. That's a gift from God, like singing. Not everyone. We can all sing, but can you sing like? I just saw Robbie Williams last night. Can you sing like Robbie Williams?
Yeah.
That guy's special. He's like everybody, 80,000, 90,000 people in the audience singing and going on. And mate, he brought that emotion out of everyone. And that's when we're watching UFC and watching all these really great fighters, or Superfight, and we're watching the start of these really great fighters
Yeah.
who they've gone from being nobody, just in the gym and the training, and then all of a sudden this is
made it.
their time to shine, you know,
Yeah.
and it starts from something so small and humble to then they're on the world stage and doing it in front of hundreds of thousands and millions, you know, broadcast wise.
Yeah. Well, when you get to the big stage, that's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
That's
It's all
the
the
start.
work under the ocean that you don't see.
Yeah, everyone sees you shine on that day. They don't see you grinding every day in here. They don't see you coming in the morning, you're coming in the night. You know, you're working your security job to make some money. You know, you're getting through injuries and you're pushing. All they see is this smiling young person walk in and come in with gloves on, ready to put on a show in front of everybody. They know that, oh, yeah, man, that's my mate. He trains, I think he trains at some place. You know, they don't know what's going on, you know. They don't know. No, he doesn't just train, mate. He basically lives there,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap things up. Is it?
Thank you, Johnny. Thanks for
No.
the opportunity. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did, man.
Now, okay, so just before we wrap up, so if obviously people want to, find you and come to the gym to train, it's Lions Den Academy.
Lions Den Academy, yeah.
Yep.
Come and check us out.
All right.
Have a look.
Yeah, too easy. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.